Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money Podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money Podcast, where we're changing the way we think about money. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. Today, we're exploring how money mindset drives money conversations. With Dave One, Dave One is our guest today. He's a money mindset sales coach and founder of the Step Zero Workshop. Dave, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here today.
Hey, Tony, I am so happy to be here with you. I'm looking forward to our conversation and all the exciting things we'll be talking about.
Yeah, myself as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your origin story and how did that get you really focused on money mindset?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family where my parents just really struggled with money. They were immigrants to South Korea, and when they came to America and they were raising my brother and I, they just struggled a lot. They declared bankruptcy as a result of not being able to pay months and months of rent. Their credit card debt was 4x their annual income. They had 4 failed businesses. It was just a wreck. It was a mess. And to avoid everything that my parents went through, I did what everybody told me to do, which is track my money and spend less than I make and make sure I put enough money away for retirement and different investments consistently. And I tried to do that. And despite doing that, I bought my first house in 2016 and suffered the most horrific panic attack of my life in 2016. And my origin story started way back then. I didn't really understand it until 2016 happened. And I'm like, I'm following all the right steps. I'm doing what people tell me to do. But how come I still feel terrible and anxious and stressed about money? I bought this house thinking it was a good investment. It was a good investment, but I'm doing all the right things, but I still feel terrible. And that's kind of like when my mind and my viewpoint around money and that it's not just numbers, there's all these underlying emotions that are happening under the surface. That's when I started to really understand it. And that's when it kind of kicked off.
Well, that's interesting. And that's what I hear from so many people. And I know from my own personal journey is that, there's these set rules or things that you're supposed to do, but they don't really have an impact on your satisfaction, or like you said, is making you feel at rest. So, let's go into it a little bit deeper, because this is about money mindset. What is money mindset?
For me, money mindset is the deep feelings and emotions you have around money, a lot of which you may or may not even understand. And that manifests itself into some sort of behavior externally, right? And so understanding the underlying drivers is the mindset that people need to have really good results externally, right? So the internal stuff is what the mindset part is, and a lot of people do not understand it.
Yeah, I think that's a critical component. I spent the majority of my career as a fee-based consultant working with other financial advisors. But, oftentimes the question would be like, okay, why did somebody buy this product? It's not really the right product for them. And so, I came to that same realization is that there's other things driving the product because smart people who understood the concept, good with math, whatever, understand the language, and yet they're still making decisions that were oftentimes puzzling. So as we work through this, is how can advisors start to incorporate this into their thinking? Uh, that money mindset is playing a huge role in their clients' decision-making process.
So advisors are like technical experts, right? You bring them the money and they'll move it around. They'll put it in different pockets of money or funds or whatever it might be, right? And they want to make sure that like all these various life situations and scenarios are taken care of, right? Whether it's like death, life, baby, emergency, all these things. And the one thing uh that I think is missing in the conversation is the relationship with money that each advisor is actually bringing to the table. And how that's actually impacting the level of belief and confidence that their clients might have on them. Let me give you a quick story. So I know an advisor. Um, he was thinking whenever he got a new client, what makes you think I could help you if I'm having trouble with my own money? And that manifests into like maybe suggesting that the client should choose a more conservative fund versus a more riskier fund, right? And so the way the advisor works with the client may be impacted because of his or her own beliefs and feelings about money. So it's really important to understand that because that's actually driving the show. That's actually driving their body language and their tone and the energy that they bring to the table. So it's really important to understand that that person is not a calculator. It's a human being, and you have to understand that they're bringing it to the conversation, to the relationship, and that's going to have a huge impact on what the client does, how the client feels about that relationship as well.
Yeah, well, I think that's great advice. I mean, for both sides, the relationship is for anybody who hires an advisor is to understand, the advisor is going to have certain biases, as you point out. They're going to have certain things they like, don't like, and if for the advisors, if you're not reflecting on your own decision making and how you're selecting things, it's going to be hard for you to make a really good recommendation with the client. So, in your mind, how can advisors really check in with themselves to, on their own money mindset?
So I have a framework called facing forward. So face forward. So FACE stands for focus, attention, care, and energy. Before I dive into that, I'm going to say something real quick. If an advisor has, I know scarcity mindset is like a commonly used term, but like let's say the client, the advisor has scarcity mindset and he or she lets that fear get in the way, maybe what he recommends or what he suggests to the client may be because of his own situation, not what the client really wants. So is the advisor unintentionally letting their own definition of or letting their own feelings and beliefs around money actually dictate what the client should do themselves? Or is their full focus, attention, care, and energy on the client and letting the client determine what that definition is versus the advisor determining what that definition is? Right? You want to make sure that their risk level may be worse or better than yours. Who knows, right? But let's leave all of our personal biases and fears and emotions and anxieties aside, and let's focus 100% on the client. I have a visualization that I use of an arrow. Is the arrow, which is the face arrow, face, is the arrow pointed towards the client or is the arrow unintentionally pointing towards me? Am I making this conversation about me? Am I unintentionally making this conversation about me? Or do I want all of my full and undivided focus, attention, care, and energy on the client?
I love that because I think that's something that's missed so often is the advisor comes in and they have like their own agenda instead of just listening. I mean, do you feel that listening is the first step as part of the focus?
Uh, Listening, I think, is the second step. In order to be fully focused, where your full and undivided focus is on the client, you have to be able to shed the internal barrier that's within you first. If you don't do that, if you don't identify what that is, it's subconsciously going to appear in that conversation. You could hear it.
So,
You could hear it in their energy. You could hear it in their tone, even the body language virtually. You could hear it, you could see it, you could feel it. And if you let any of that fear or that emotion kind of get in the way, the client's gonna the client's going to see it. The client's going to feel it. And as a result, the client could be like, I don't know if I trust this guy. And when that trust is diminished, they end up leaving. Right. And so, let's say all advisors were the same, plus or minus some degree of variance. They all could recommend a few things, suggest a few things. Let's say they were like all in that same little bucket. But the thing that will set you apart is like making sure that it's not their own biases or emotions getting in the way. Like you want to make sure that you understand that, push that off to the side, and then put your full face on the client.
yeah, I agree completely, and that makes a lot of sense, and it's great advice. Is that you do need to focus on the client, but yeah, is you have to understand it's like, okay, well, why am I feeling this way, or are my feelings having an impact on the recommendations that I'm making? Do I have a bias? And I think that's the thing is, as an advisor, that can be challenging. But we look at it, for a doctor or an attorney, it's the same thing. It's like, are they making this choice based upon what they think or upon the maybe the symptoms that are presented?
Like
And
one of the questions that I ask, so I have a scorecard. So
okay,
I have a face forward scorecard, and each letter has three questions. And what I have people do is rate themselves 0 to 10 on each of those questions. So each letter has a potential of a score of 30, right? So the total score for the whole scorecard is 120. And depending on how you score, you're going to know it's like a diagnostic, like a self-diagnostic for yourself before you enter each conversation. Is my focus, attention, care, and energy unintentionally on myself, or is it on the client? And one of the questions that I ask, and my questions may differ depending on the industry and the role, but here's a similar question. So like, this is for a loan officer, let's just say, right? Am I exploring the client's long-term financial dreams, or am I assuming their borrowing limits based on my own money concerns? So when you enter a conversation, I you should go through the scorecard and ask yourself this question, because what you want to do is when you enter that conversation, you want to make sure that, yes, I am focused on the client's dreams and the client's needs and the client's desires versus like, I don't know if you should get the $1 million house. I don't know if you should get the $200,000 house. That's not for you to determine. You need to do the right discovery and make sure that it fits the client's needs versus your needs unintentionally.
yeah, and that's hard, and it comes with growth, and it comes with just being, continuously client focused. I'd imagine that's also part of it is that, it's a continuous check-in. It's not a one time, but
Mm-mm.
it's something that you need to ask yourself as you go through the process.
Yeah, and that's why the scorecard is important. And I've been sharing that with clients of mine. But like you go in and you have to make sure like where is my mindset at right now? And there's some deeper work required, but like this is like a very good first step. It's like where is it at? And you want to make sure that you're completely prepared as best you can when you enter that conversation.
Well, that's awesome. So, one of the things that you and I have talked about is that this can drive uh, better conversations and provide more value. So, how does that really work? How does that translate into providing more value-driven conversations?
When you're able to shed and set your beliefs and your feelings around money aside, and you're able to put your full focus, attention, care, and energy on the client, that allows you to ask really good questions. That allows you to get curious and really dig deep into the client's lives, their needs, their pain points. And when you get really curious and you start asking really good discovery questions, you'll discover something and a pain point. The hope is to discover a pain point that the client didn't even know was a pain point. And when you're able to do that and provide them a solution to actually address that pain point, that's when value skyrockets. Because what they're going to do is they're going to say, this guy can provide me a solution for this cost. Actually, it's not even a cost at that point, it's an investment. And then once I invest in that, I get this in return. I mean, that's where value is unlocked, right? But if you unknowingly make the conversation be about you versus the client, what you're going to do is you're going to provide them, let's say you close on a deal, but you're going to provide them an inadequate solution. The client's going to be with you for the year, let's just say, and their problem still remains because you, as a salesperson or the advisor, didn't do a sufficient enough job to actually locate and pinpoint a pain point that the client really has. So it's your
I,
job to shed that aside. And once you're able to do that deep discovery and unlock something that the client didn't even know was there, that's when you're going to have a client for life because you're able to provide value for them year over year.
I love that. And I always come back to the medical field because, if you look at a doctor and the way they do an exam is, they're not, sometimes some doctors may get distracted by the primary complaint that somebody comes in with, but a doctor goes through a whole framework of trying to find out, like, okay, well, they have a headache, but is that really what's going on? And I know sometimes some of us go in for medical appointments and are like, okay, well, why is the doctor asking all these almost seemingly unrelated questions? But that's what the doctor is trying to do. I had a little bit of training as a first responder, and it's called a differential diagnosis, and it's like ruling out a lot of things as well. And so you can, like you're talking about, is you can really focus in on, okay, well, what's really going on? The client thinks is going on, but that may be not what the client is really going through. So I know you've got something called the Step Zero Workshop. Can you tell us a little bit about what is the Step Zero Workshop?
Yeah, so the Step Zero workshop, I titled it Step Zero, the Step Zero workshop. I titled it Step Zero because the sales cycle. So I focus and I primarily support sales teams, right? High functioning, high performing sales teams, um, across a wide range of industries. Um, I I named it Step Zero because the sales cycle is step one to step seven, let's just say, right? Step one is customer research. Step two is prospecting, outreach. And then step 7 is closing and delivering. But what's missing in sales training is addressing the relationship with money that each of the sales people bring to their role and how it actually impacts sales. And so step 0 focuses on helping them understand their relationship with money, diving into their story, and finding ways to overcome some of those, or identifying and understanding their own patterns and emotions that they have with money, and then being able to, and how that impacts their sales behaviors and how that actually, impacts sales. And helping them overcome some of these negative and bad habits and replacing them with good ones so that way they can be good sellers, be better sellers, and as a result they'll stop leaving money on the table and they'll have better control of their deals and they'll just perform better and make more money, right, as a result of that. Um so that's what step 0. It's a full day workshop. It's a pretty intense workshop that I've been doing.
So just out of curiosity, is this also something that might be helpful for, even a fee-based advisor who wants to, work on that part of the process, where it's not necessarily always a sales process, but, it follows the same cycle?
You know, advisors are, whether they like it or not, advisors are salespeople. They're sellers, right? You have to go out there and get those relationships and meet those people and build those relationships. You have to do that, right? Um, and their relationship with money is going to impact those relationships, right? So you have to be able to understand that. And this actually, I do have a variation of the program of the workbook, depending on the industry and the role that I'm working with. But advisors are definitely falling into that group as well. They need
That's awesome.
they need to understand it.
Yeah, and I'm with you. As I spent the majority of my career, as I mentioned, as a fee-based insurance consultant working with advisors, and that would often be something I would deal with is the advisor's own feelings about insurance. Not even what was right for the client or what we were dealing with the client. Is like they had their own issues, and if we can't get past their own issues and biases, is like we can't even really have an effective conversation about a client's insurance portfolio.
Mhm. Yeah, it's super important to look in before looking out. It's very important to look in before you look out.
I love that. I'm going to put that in the show notes. Look in before you look out. It's simple in theory, but very difficult to execute. But, for people watching and listening, there will be links to Dave's website. And so you can find out more about the Step 0 workshop and a scorecard. So, Dave, let's wrap up with the Get Ready Hot Take Trio. 3 quick questions to help listeners change how they think about money. The first one is, what money myth are you trying to break?
The myth I'm trying to break is that money money is all about numbers. Is that a myth?
It's a myth I've heard all the time that money is all
Okay,
about
how about this?
numbers.
How about this? How about this? How about this? Money is a tool.
I love that.
I actually don't think money is a tool.
Really? Okay.
I don't believe it. At first I did, but over over the years I've begun to not believe it anymore. I believe so ideally if you were to strip everything down, money is a form of exchange of value, right? I'll give you $10, you give me that shirt, right? I deem that to be a good trade, so I accept it. You deem that to be a good trade, so you accept my money, right? Um, it's a medium that you could use to exchange value. But over time, like while that still might be the case, uh, money will never just be a tool. So I want to be very careful with my words, but money will never just be a tool. It will always be about something else.
I love that.
And
And I think,
and the emotions that I want to kind of attach to that is power, comfort, control, approval, security, safety. All these words that I just said are attached to money. Money will never just be a piece of paper that you just use to exchange value. There will always be something attached to it. So when people say money is just a tool, treat it like that, I think that's impossible because we've given our power to it and there's all these emotions attached to it and you can never separate it. You can never separate it. So I think our job is to help people understand it at a deeper level so that way they can make more logical and sound decisions with their money versus thinking money is just a medium uh, of exchange when it comes to value. I think it's really important to understand that there's always money is always about something else. It's never just about the dollar amount or
I, I, I
or the exchange of it.
I love that. And I think that gets back to, your whole messaging and everything that you're talking about is that there's so much more going on below the surface that it's easy to say, like you said, it's an exchange of $10. But for somebody, they might say, oh, well, that's $10 I don't really want to spend, or I feel ashamed that I'm spending $10 on a new shirt. Granted, if you can find a shirt for $10, but we'll just agree that you can find a good shirt for $10 for the sake of the conversation. But, it does tie into what you're talking about.
Yeah, and like I'll give slightly fewer extreme examples, but like you know um one of the things that I say quite often is have you ever heard the term like the phrase buyers buy with emotion then justify it with logic,
Yeah.
right? Like people buy things with emotion, but they'll go, "Oh, the reason why I bought this is because my cup broke, so I need a new cup." Or I need a new car because my car's about to break down. So like they have all these logical reasons as to why they buy, but deep down it's for emotional reasons. So you could
Yeah.
actually replace the word buyers with sellers. So sellers sell with emotion and justify with logic, right? And so I don't know, like it's so important to understand that there is so many deeper emotions that are attached to it. Like um the only person that's going to know those emotions is you, not anybody else. On the outside, you could take two of the same actions and you can't assume that the underlying emotion and the intent behind it is the same. So, so for example, if somebody bought a house and said a large house, let's say they bought the biggest house in the city, and they said, "I got 20 kids. I need to put all my kids in there." It all makes sense, right? There's enough room. It makes sense. But and while that might be true, it's important for the person to understand what their emotional driver is. And if their emotional driver was the reason why I bought that house was to show the entire world that I'm that guy, I'm the king of the world, like what's that emotion? Could be power, right? So like, and then do you see that emotion sprinkled around somewhere else, driving their other behaviors, right? So I think it's really important to understand that because a lot of these are just like never-ending treadmills, right? And so it's really important to understand that because my hope is for people to, I use the acronym CPI, not KPI, but I use CPI. CPI stands for contentment, purpose, and intentionality. I want people to live a life filled with contentment, purpose, and intentionality, and not just be on this never ending hamster wheel of chasing after the next thing, thinking that thing was going to do something for them.
I love that because I think that's how so many people live their lives. And it's easy to do. Like you said at the very beginning, is because those are the rules that we're told. So,
Mhm.
Dave, next question is, let's get out the time machine for a minute. What advice would you give your younger self if you could go back in time knowing what you know now about money? What would you change?
The one thing I would change is stop chasing after money and chase after impact. And I believe I'm in a really good spot right now where I'm doing that. And the money comes, but my disposition is to chase after changing people's lives versus chasing after the money. And I did that for a long time, and it was exhausting. And
Well, that's one of the rules, right?
I've made good money in the past, and then I've realized it didn't really change my life for the better. It actually made some parts of my life worse. So chase impact, not money. Impact over income.
I like that. I like that. So, the last question is, what is your number one tip on changing the way we think about money?
I think it's important to, I said this before, but uh, everybody thinks it's numbers are money is a numbers game. And yet there's a numbers component. I'm not going to deny that, right? It's obvious there's a numbers component. But I want people to pause. Just pause for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute, whatever, however long it might take you. And just quickly ask yourself the five whys. Why am I doing this? Whether it's saving in a certain way or spending in a certain way, those are pretty tangible things that we could all kind of dive into since we all save and spend money in various ways. Why am I doing this? And what is it for? And if you dig deep enough, you'll get to that emotion. And then I think once you understand it and work through it, um, I'm a firm believer that you'll be able to make smarter and more sound decisions as a result of it. So don't just do things just because you want to do it. I think it's important to understand and get to the root reason behind why we spend and save the way we do. So when it comes to money, I think it's important to just do that simple work. The five whys is important. It just builds on each other. Why am I getting this shirt? Well, I'm getting this shirt because I need a new one. Why do you need a new one? You already have a million of them at home. You see it, you just kind of ask yourself why, and you kind of get to the reason behind why you do what you do. And I think as a result of that, I think people are going to make more sound decisions from it.
Definitely, because sometimes that is all it takes is, some people shop if they're angry or whatever, emotional driven shopping. And yeah, or like you said, is like it's not something you really need, but it feels at the time that it's something you need or want. And so taking out those few minutes to reflect is really important. So, Dave, where can people connect with you and learn more about the Step Zero workshop?
Yeah, so my LinkedIn is Dave Wan, and my website is davewan.co, co, davewan.co. Um, I'm a keynote speaker, so I speak to sales teams, sales kickoffs, national sales meetings, team company events where salespeople are involved. So I speak at those events and and companies that have high performing sales teams that want to partner with me and use this as an add-on to the sales training that they have. Sales training is great, but I believe it's missing a key component, which is what I am the missing piece to that puzzle, right? So the step zero workbook and the workshop that I have is that missing piece. And so if they want to dive into that and understand that more, they can reach out through my website and go from there.
Fantastic. Is the Step Zero workbook available separately, or is that just part of the workshop?
It's part of the workshop. I don't sell it on the market and like that. It's just a so I do a day-long workshop, and for people to kind of go through the workshop with me as I'm facilitating it, I built a workbook to kind of guide them through that flow. So, yeah, it's just something that is kept in-house for that purpose.
Okay, fantastic. Just wanted to be able to direct people if it was for sale somewhere. So for everybody watching and listening, as always, there will be links to Dave's LinkedIn profile and website in the show notes so you can easily contact him. Dave, thanks for joining us today on the Get Ready Money podcast.
Hey, thanks, Tony. I enjoyed our conversation, and I look forward to having more with you.
Yeah, no, appreciate your time and insights. And thank you, everyone, as always, for tuning in to this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast. If this episode helped you change the way you think about money, please be sure to subscribe and to share it with a friend. You can go to join the Get Ready movement on my website at tonystewart.com for the Get Ready newsletter, to learn about podcast updates and free access to my Get Ready toolkit. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.